BTS News Today. It began with a ripple and ended in something close to euphoria. On the evening of December 16, 2025, millions of screens lit up around the world as BTS, RM, Jin, Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook came together on Weverse for an OT7 live that felt less like a formal announcement and more like a group of longtime friends returning to the same living room after a long absence. The stream itself was simple. Cameras warmed by soft studio light, the members settling in with cups and couches, laughter spilling out before formalities could begin. But in that looseness was the story the world had been waiting to see. 7 lives, 7 stages of growth, and a group that had returned from military service to face, together, the future. Weverse live listing and archived recordings. They did not arrive as separate solo headlines. They arrived as a single, uneasy miracle. The reunion had been seeded across months, photos, short clips, and tantalizing teases, but nothing replaced the rawness of a live, unedited conversation broadcast to a fandom grown patient and, in many ways, anxious. From the first exchanges, the tone was conversational. Jin, with his characteristic easy grin, teased the others about who had overslept and who had eaten the last snack. Suga rolled his eyes. RM reached for a notebook and then shrugged it away, as if deciding this night would be spoken, not scripted. J-Hope orbited the room with an energy that felt like sunlight. Jimin and V traded small, private jokes that only deep friendship could carry, and Jungkook grinned in that way he does when he's excited to be doing what he loves, exactly where he belonged. The moment felt simultaneously ordinary and monumentally public. The conversation moved like a river, sometimes slow and reflective, sometimes rushing and gleaming with jokes. They talked about recent routines, about the small rituals they had kept while apart, and about the relief of returning to the studio. Jungkook, who has been in the headlines often this year as ARMY's golden magne matured into a confident artist, teased a tiny spoiler for the upcoming music and laughed off the flurry of global speculation. "The company will contact me right away," he joked, then softened to say how much he'd missed rehearsing together. Across social platforms and fan uploads, viewers clipped the moment to replay it. The slight drop in his voice when he said the word together. That sentence landed like something the group had been saving. They did not treat the night as merely promotional. There was a tenderness, often quiet, rarely declared, that threaded many of their conversations. RM spoke about responsibility, not the headline-grabbing version, but the day-to-day weight of being artists who grew up in public. His voice sometimes carried the cadence of someone counting the cost and also celebrating the gain. "We learn as we go," he said at one point, and the camera lingered on his hands as he folded them, the quiet image of a leader who knows there's no single answer. Across the room, Jimin nodded, eyes bright, and later, when asked how it felt to perform again, he described a strange, beautiful vulnerability. "It's like remembering how to speak a language you haven't used." That phrasing, 2 simple metaphors that folded into one human truth, became one of the night's most shared lines. There were lighter moments threaded through the intimacy. Jin insisted the group rehearse a ridiculous, impromptu stage pose for the camera. J-Hope led a silly, breakdance-inspired demonstration that had the others laughing until their mouths hurt. Suga, ever the deadpan anchor, supplied dry commentary that made J-Hope mock-charge the coffee table. Fans clipped these bursts and turned them into reaction reels and memes within minutes. The joy of seeing 7 people who had once composed a global cultural moment simply enjoying each other again was irresistible. But even the laughter was underlaid by something else, a sense that the camaraderie carried new, deeper tones after the separations and the years of service. They were no longer just performers. They were older men who had learned, each in his own way, a different kind of resilience. Conversation inevitably moved to music, the new album that had been the subject of months of speculation. They did not deliver a full reveal, but they gave texture, hints, and moods, a sense of direction rather than a map. Jungkook joked about an exciting song and spoke in clipped, excited phrases about performance tracks that would allow the group to show choreography again. 3 to 4 songs, he said, meant to be performed with full force. RM and Suga discussed how they were experimenting with textures and tempos, trying to balance songs that hold personal narratives with ones that the stage could elevate. It was less about releasing details and more about feeling the heartbeat of the work. In the conversation's cadence, listeners could sense the slow reconstruction of a group that had to make new music meaningful to themselves first, and then to the world at several points. The members referenced recent public moments, solo projects, magazine shoots, and film collaborations. Jin, who had been touring and promoting his solo projects, spoke about the strange luxury of performing in a small venue after stadiums, describing both the intimacy and the pressure. V teased new acting bits, and J-Hope chuckled about the fashion collaborations he'd been filming. Yet none of those individual updates felt like detours. Rather, they were proof points for a group whose members had layered new personal forms of artistry onto their shared foundation. The night became a collective inventory of memories and small boasts. all of which the members handled with the lightness of people who have learned how to keep each other steady. The live also moved into fan interactions. They answered questions people typed in from dozens of countries, responding to the delicious randomness of global fandom. Someone asked, unavoidably, about the tour rumors. RM smiled, offered a semi-cryptic remark about more places than before, and then deflected, part sparking curiosity, part preserving the process that the fans have always loved, the slow build. When asked about how it felt to complete military service and come back, Suga's answer was compact and honest. The relief of being able to speak again as a group, and the humility of seeing time pass. Jimin, eyes reflecting the screen's light, thanked fans for holding our hands while they were apart. An emotional image that made many viewers reach for tissues and tap the heart. Those fan exchanges reminded everyone watching that this band's story has always been mutual. Fame is not a monologue, but a conversation extended between stage and crowd. Beyond the talk of music and service, there were small human confessions. Suga admitting he'd started sketching more, J-Hope teasing about a recipe that everyone loved and which no one could replicate, and Jungkook quietly admitting he'd retaken basic guitar lessons to get back into the groove. There was a moment when V and Jimin shared a simultaneous, shy look, and no words were needed for the room to understand. The bond between them was the kind of language fans call chemistry, but that night it read like a long book. Pages turned slowly, each chapter built on the last. The camera caught those micro-expressions that are so often lost in curated interviews. Fingers finding other fingers, a shoulder brushed in passing, the unforced eye contact that says, simply, we know. Journalists and news outlets noted the financial and cultural stakes behind the evening. The reunion was more than personal nostalgia. It was a commercial moment with cultural implications. Headlines across reputable outlets framed the live as the public confirmation of a broader comeback. Images of group photos and studio behind the scenes had already circulated earlier in December, heightening expectations for 2026. But the members themselves steered away from press-suitable soundbites. Their remarks were textured with care. If the world wanted a manifesto or a PR-ready reveal, what they offered instead was a layered, humane conversation about art, friendship, and the unpredictable joy of performing again. Coverage and reunion context. Near the end of the broadcast, they played a short, improvised game, a memory chain, where each recalled one vivid moment from the past decade. The answers range from the comedic, J-Hope story of a stage prop gone wrong, to the quietly monumental, RM's memory of an early recording session when something unexpectedly came together. In one of the evening's most telling passages, Jungkook stopped the chain to say, plainly, I want to be myself on stage. It was a line that felt like both a confession and a promise, an artist asserting the basic right to authenticity after years of external expectation. The phrase circulated quickly among fandom and media because it captured something essential about BTS's renewed mission, to make music that felt honest to them first. As the live stream wound down, there was a restless, tender cadence to their farewells. They thanked fans, over and over, gracefully, precisely, like people who know they are part of an ecosystem far larger than themselves. The final moments were low-key. Someone suggested a group selfie. Someone else attempted a last joke. Jin reminded everyone to log off, which prompted a round of boos and laughter. And then, with the familiar mix of mountains of gratitude and a hush that curtain calls often borrow, they signed off. The comments and clips that cascaded across social platforms afterward read like a global exhale. For many, the live was more than an update. It felt like closure for a long waiting period, and the start of something new. If one were to place this Weverse live in a larger chronicle, it would be a hinge. The moment where separation turned into reunion, and reunion began to take the shape of forward motion. The members' words, careful, funny, raw, offered both the comfort of continuity and the thrill of the unknown. They spoke about songs not yet finished, about choreography being drafted, about the quiet work of becoming again as a unit. But more than that, they gave ARMY a taste of what the next chapter might prioritize. Authenticity on stage, a sense of artistic risk, and the intention to carry their shared history gently into newer music. The global reaction, news write-ups, archived live uploads, Weverse posts, and fan videos showed an audience eager for more, for the continuity of OT7 and for music that would reflect what those 7 men had learned. For those who watched, the broadcast offered an unusual abundance, the trifecta of laughter, confession, and craft. It reminded everyone that public life, even when it is staged and scrutinized, still allows private human moments to shine. When the lights dimmed, the world felt more patient than before, perhaps because those 7 faces, speaking quietly and fiercely, had made everyone feel like they were allowed to grow with them, to be part of a slow, honest reinvention. Sources and short quotes below are the primary sources I used and brief quoted excerpts, each kept under 25 words, pulled directly from public posts and coverage. Weverse Live listing and BTS Weverse media page, official live hub, enjoy BTS's live in real time, and previous lives on Weverse. Full recorded Weverse live uploads and archives, public recordings of the December 16th broadcast clips, and full re-uploads used to confirm conversational highlights and timestamps. BTS OT7 full Weverse live today, December 16th, 2025. Recent news coverage about the OT7 reunion and comeback context, reporting on the group's reunion after military service and hints toward 2026 activity. All 7 members of BTS have reunited after completing their military service. Weverse community posts and fan uploads on Weverse that captured in-the-moment fan responses and community images posted on December 16th. Guys, what do you think about my new edit for OT7? The moment the live counter passed the 30-minute mark, something subtle but important shifted in the atmosphere. The members had settled into a rhythm that no longer felt like a broadcast, but like a private gathering that millions were quietly allowed to witness. The early nervous laughter faded, replaced by long pauses, overlapping voices, and those silences that only people who have spent more than a decade together can share without discomfort. Viewers noticed it immediately. The comments slowed, as if army around the world instinctively chose to listen rather than scream. RM leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees, and spoke about time, not in the abstract way idols often do, but with the grounded weight of someone who has lived through absence. He admitted that during service, there were moments when he wondered how the group would sound when they spoke again as 7. Not musically, but conversationally. Would they interrupt each other the same way? Would the jokes land? Would the silence feel heavy or familiar? As he spoke, Suga nodded slowly, adding that the first studio session after reunion had been strangely quiet, not because anything was wrong, but because everyone was listening carefully, almost relearning one another's rhythms. Jimin broke the seriousness with a soft laugh, recalling how awkward the very first greeting had been. "We just stared," he said, miming the moment, shoulders rising as the others burst out laughing. Jungkook added that he had wanted to hug everyone immediately, but hesitated, unsure who would move first. That confession, small and honest, resonated deeply with fans who had followed their bond for years. It reframed the reunion not as a cinematic explosion of emotion, but as something gentler and more human. 7 people learning how to stand together again. As the live progressed, the members began responding more directly to fan comments scrolling past at dizzying speed. A question about pressure lingered on the screen long enough for V to notice it. He read it aloud and paused before answering, his voice lower than earlier. He spoke about expectations, not just from the public, but from themselves. He admitted that there was a time when he feared fans would expect them to return exactly as they were before, unchanged by time or experience. "But we're not the same," he said simply, "and that's not a bad thing." J-Hope immediately agreed, his tone bright but firm, emphasizing that growth was the point of the journey, not a deviation from it. This led naturally into a discussion about identity, one of the most quietly powerful threads of the night. Jungkook, often perceived as the embodiment of endless adaptability, surprised viewers with how directly he addressed the topic. He spoke about the exhaustion of being constantly defined by talent and performance, and the relief he felt during the past year being able to exist without cameras. He described rediscovering music in private spaces, singing without recording, dancing without choreography. "I remembered why I started," he said, his smile softer than before. The room went still, the others listening without interruption, a rare courtesy that highlighted the weight of the moment. Suga followed with an observation that reframed Jungkook's words into a group philosophy. He said that BTS had always thrived when they were honest with themselves first, and that every period of struggle in their history coincided with moments when they forgot that truth. His voice remained calm, but the implication was clear. This comeback would not be about scale or domination, but alignment. Fans later described this section of the live as feeling more like a roundtable discussion than an idle broadcast, and that perception spread quickly across social media. Around the 1-hour mark, Jin took on the role of emotional conductor, steering the mood back toward warmth and humor. He teased the others about their habits since returning, who had become overly tidy, who refused to sleep, who insisted on late-night studio snacks. The laughter that followed felt looser, more relaxed than at the beginning of the live. J-Hope stood up briefly, dancing in place to demonstrate a move he claimed would be part of an upcoming performance, only to be immediately shut down by RM, who jokingly covered the camera. The chaos was brief but genuine, a reminder that BTS's chemistry has always thrived in these unguarded moments. As the broadcast entered its final third, the topic of the future could no longer be avoided. RM acknowledged the rumors directly, not confirming details, but recognizing the anticipation. He spoke about the responsibility they felt toward ARMY, especially after such a long wait. "We don't want to rush," he said, "but we also don't want to hide." That sentence, balancing caution and courage, encapsulated the group's current position. They were aware of their power, but equally aware of the consequences of misusing it. Jimin added that performing together again had felt like returning to a place where he could breathe fully. He described the physical sensation of harmonizing live, of hearing their voices overlap in real time rather than through headphones and separate recordings. His eyes shimmered as he spoke, and V instinctively reached over, resting a hand briefly on his shoulder. The gesture was small, almost accidental, but it was captured and replayed endlessly by fans afterward, becoming one of the most discussed visual moments of the night. When a fan asked what the live meant to them personally, Jungkook answered without hesitation. He said it felt like opening the door and realizing everyone was still there. That metaphor spread rapidly across fan communities, interpreted as a reflection of both BTS's relationship with ARMY and with each other. Analysts and journalists later pointed out that this kind of language, intimate, domestic, grounded, was a stark contrast to the grandiose rhetoric often used in comeback promotions, and that contrast made it more powerful. As the closing minutes approached, the members began thanking fans in earnest. Not the rehearsed gratitude of award stages, but the layered thanks of people who understood absence. They thanked ARMY for waiting, for trusting, for growing alongside them. Jin joked one last time about ending the live, but his voice softened as he did so, and the room quieted instinctively. RM delivered the final message, not as a leader making an announcement, but as a person extending a promise. "We're here," he said, "and we're moving forward together." The screen faded, but the impact did not. Within minutes, headlines began forming across international media. Commentators described the live as restrained, mature, and emotionally transparent. Fans dissected every phrase, every glance, every pause. Industry analysts noted the strategic brilliance of such a low-key, yet high-impact return. No teaser trailers, no dramatic countdowns, just 7 voices speaking honestly in real time. It reinforced BTS's unique position in global music, not merely as performers, but as storytellers whose most compelling narrative has always been their own evolution. For ARMY, the December 16th Weverse Live became more than a broadcast. It became a timestamp, a moment to point to and say, this is when it felt real again. Not because of confirmed tours or album dates, but because the connection, the fragile, human, irreplaceable connection, was unmistakably intact. And as the night ended in different time zones around the world, one truth lingered louder than any rumor or headline. BTS did not return as legends reclaiming a throne. They returned as 7 people choosing, once again, to walk the same path, aware of its weight, but unafraid of its future.